We're going to analyse today the article, "This crisis requires us all to do the right thing." I've already done the annotations. I'll quickly walk you through them and then we'll spend a bit of time filling out the argument analysis template. Okay, so the contention for this piece is pretty well immediately seen here. This crisis requires us all to do the right thing. So we can tell that this writer is going to be arguing that at this time of crisis, he's demanding we all need, us all, everyone, right thing. And what is the right thing? Well, he's going to explain in here that the right thing is following the government's rules. So that's the key contention here. As I've gone through, I've identified from this line here up, this is going to be what I write about for argument 1 in my first body paragraph. So in this section, the writer is explaining that these are not ordinary times. And I can see here, can I go to the beach? Can I go to the park? Can I go shopping? So I've got this list of rhetorical questions. Now, ordinarily, we know that these sorts of things are no-brainers. Of course you can go to the park. Of course you can go shopping. So in pre-COVID times, it's like this other era of the past, these sorts of questions were easily answered. And then look down here, but these are far from normal times. Okay, so I've highlighted these because that's a motive, and it's like harking back to the idea that this is an extraordinary time. And this list of rhetorical questions, as I've written here, the list of rhetorical questions, you know, that once upon a time these were normal activities, and this is emphasizing to us just how extraordinary these times now are. He's also creating this sense of urgency, crucial part in determining how effectively Australia can limit the spread of coronavirus. Australia can limit, and how effectively. So we need to be able to do these things. When you get an article and there is an image, you must talk about the image. If you don't, you lose substantial marks, particularly in your Year 12 exam. So make sure you definitely are. Now have a look at this image for a sec. We've got this sign, practice social distancing, and then we've got these people here clearly defying that sign even though it's within, it's clearly visible. Look at the age of these people. They're young. Look what they're wearing, you know, they're bumming around at the beach. So these people are being established as young, restless, and they're ignoring the health advice. That makes them quite selfish. So this is trying to highlight to us that people are not doing the right thing. Look at how that is paired with some of the language that I've highlighted here. Flouting, preferred denial. Okay, so people who are doing this are flouting the rules, they're denying the reality, and therefore they're putting us all at risk. They're failing to take seriously the pandemic. We've got here some interesting language. Prime Minister Scott Morrison spelt out edicts. He was very clear. And then we've got this list of rules that we're expected to follow. So despite these people who are flouting the rules, Scott Morrison has in fact been very clear. So let's have a quick look at this table here. Oh, didn't come up. There we go. Okay, I was in the middle of filling that out. I'll come back to that later. What I'm wanting to look at now is the arguments. So in that first argument, what is being said? So what is being said is that these are not ordinary times and clear rules have been set out to guide Australians through the crisis. Language. How is the writer asserting this argument? So for that, we look back here. So we've got the rhetorical questions, and we've got the emotive language and this sense of urgency that is emphasizing the fact that this is not business as usual. So we would say here, we've got some rhetorical questions. We've got some emotive and urgent language, emphasis on unusual times. What else have we got? Despite the unusual times, we've got very strong language coming from the Prime Minister. Strong and clear language from Prime Minister. And we've got language and image that portrays people ignoring the rules as selfish and reckless. Now, that's the how. Now we need to look, now we need to look at the why. Why was this said? What does the writer want the reader to think or feel about the issue, about the argument? So with all of these ideas that, there's the rhetorical question, it's emotive and urgent, this is not business as usual, the reader is here supposed to feel like there's this sense of urgency that they must adhere to the rules because this is such an unusual time. So we might say here, the reader is positioned to agree that the current situation requires adherence to rules in order to keep people safe. The government, so here, the fact that it's emphasizing that this is not business as usual, something needs to be done because we can't live our lives as we normally would. And then you say that the government has been very strong. So the government is actually being portrayed here as quite effective. So the government is portrayed as effective. Let's go trustworthy and strong as it lays down rules for keeping Australians safe. And then we've got this idea of the image and that use of language, they're flouting the rules, they're in a state of denial. So people who are not following the rules are selfish and putting others at, actually that's not really here yet, are selfish and reckless. Okay, now I need to look back here. So now I've got argument 2. And the reason that I have split it here is this entire section is about, it's not business as usual. This is what's happening at the moment. This is what the Prime Minister has said. It's kind of informing us of what's going on. Here in this little section, now it starts to talk about people who are flouting the rules, the consequences that they can expect, and the leadership, or like the consequences of what's happened when leaders haven't been strong around the world. So that's why I've grouped that together. The rules are clear. People will get into trouble if they don't follow them, and they should. And look at what's happened in the US and the UK when we've had weak leaders who haven't actually taken this seriously. So again, in here, argument 2 here is going to be the rules and consequences for not following them are clear and these are necessary to keep people safe. Okay, so here we've got the comparison with other countries. Can't type. What else do we have in there? So what have I said? Oh, cause and effect argument. If you are infected, besides your own health being at risk, you could affect others. So this is really putting the ownership back on people and saying, if you don't do the right thing, this is what will happen. This kind of continues here. The US and the UK didn't do the right thing, and look what happened. And look at the language that's being used here. Finally taking the outbreak seriously, boasted, struck down by the virus himself. So it's very strong and dangerous language. Australians should be grateful for clarity. So here we're being told to be grateful to our government. A liberal dose of common sense, they should be able to offer people a good idea of what to do. So here it's just an idea of like, be a good person, follow the rules, otherwise this is going to happen. So here, cause and effect arguments show consequences. Okay, now why was this being done? This emphasizes the effective and clear approach the Australian government has taken. The comparison to other countries highlights the serious consequences of not following the strict rules that are in place. So we are positioned to trust the government. They just want what's best for us to ensure community safety. Let's do that. Okay, ooh, right. Okay, one more. Okay, so down here, not much left, but you can actually see here, if you look at this visually, you can see that it's pretty evenly put into 3 chunks. If you find it really difficult to work out where the different chunks go, normally a lot of articles actually are relatively even. I mean, hopefully you can see the shift. So here, this is all about the consequences. If you don't do what the government says, this is what can happen. And here it says, the government's actually got us in a really good place. Each person should do the right thing. We don't want what's happening in China to be happening here. All Australians therefore need to do the right thing. Okay, so here, Australians need to work with the government to ensure community safety. Okay, we've got here the idea that, look at the emotive language. Effective means thrashing out the issues, collective position, same social distancing messaging around, echoed around Australia. So as Australians, we're a community. So we've got community is emphasised, collective approach. And we have that's encouraging everyone to take responsibility. Okay, so then here, maybe have a go yourselves at having a go. What is the effective? What is the effect? I really liked what is being said. How is it being said? Why is it being said? Most of your marks come from the why column. That's the analysis. What is the argument? How is the writer establishing that argument? Why are they trying to use it that way? Perfect. Thanks.